Hi everybody and welcome to this week's Matrix Live Season 2 Episode 18, coming to you live from the kitchen here, where I am surrounded by Star Trek The Next Generation figurines, limited edition of Riker and Picard, Gollum. Oh, I can't work out how to use the camera. We've got Pearl books, we've got RTP books, got C++ Bibles from years gone by. We've got the old MX Telecom sign, which is the company we used to work at many, many years ago. And most importantly, we've got Luke, who's just trying to eat his lunch at, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, because that's obviously what you do. And I'm going to persecute because he, unfortunately, is sitting next to me. We've also got Calix down there somewhere. Where are you gone, Calix? Oh, there he is, somewhere lost behind the table. Whatever. Maybe not to Luke.
So this week I've been writing loads of tests. So I've been writing tests for the room list.
So for the ordering of the sub list stuff in the room list and making sure that the subsections in Right Web are okay.
So a subset of its functionality, including dragging and dropping between sections, which is apparent, and we actually found a bug with those, so that's good. That's why when you drag from people to rooms, it flickers. So we caught that, which is nice. It's basically testing the optimistic updates. So it's quite a small subset of tests. I wrote a massive list and decided to only do some.
And that's using Karma and the Mocha stuff.
Yeah, so it was very, very much in line with our other tests, except this was using the Flux stores that we have scattered about the place. So we had a couple of Flux stores that relied on some. Going into too much detail.
Not at all. I was going to say we had a great big discussion this week in terms of Right Web architecture, in terms of whether we should be using Flux more or less, because originally in its guts the React SDK that Riot uses is pretty naive in terms of storing its state inside React components and using a simple Flux-ish dispatcher to send as an event bus basically. And debating the benefits of a more structured approach using Flux. And I think the conclusion was that we're going to look at what balance we had when we do move state out of a component, how much goes into Flux today and how much doesn't, and let's pit one or the other.
Yeah.
But so the room stuff is using Flux. Oh yeah, because the room list is backed by a Flux store now, isn't it?
Yes. So the order in which the rooms appear, and the rooms that actually appear in the subsections, they are backed by Flux. I felt the pain actually quite strongly when dealing with the two types of stores, Flux and ad hoc. I didn't necessarily, it wasn't necessarily easier to test because some of the stores were Flux, which is interesting. So, I mean, these were the first tests that we had ever, benefited from actually having Flux stores, because it was nice to just be able to dispatch a bunch of stuff, knowing that those dispatch things, when they happen in reality, they will cause the same things to happen. So you do get the benefit of code coverage without mocking anything. Although I did have to mock on the other hand, I did have to mock the group view store, which was relatively painless. It was easy to do. So there are definitely two sides here, and mocking a getter on a store is not the end of the world. Mocking the store, notifying its listeners, was not the end of the world. Having said that, you could mock the Flux stores in the same way. So it's it's really interesting actually. I mean, when you try to apply the theory behind which stores to use when you're actually writing tests.
So this is basically a sneak peek into the life of the Riot Web team as we agonise over the architecture for basically where you store state, which in web apps is always a nightmare, and React doesn't necessarily give you any silver bullet other than opening it up to big holy wars between ad hoc and Flux, Redux, RX Reacty things as well out there, perhaps.
Yeah, RxJS, yeah.
So I don't know. If we get every time we get it more right, then hopefully it makes it easier for the tests to be written and for the code to be more maintainable, and therefore us to be able to do performance work to refactor everything to make it go faster. Which, in case you're wondering what the actual benefit is, that's basically what the idea is. So yeah, thanks for being completely hijacked, Luke. Bon appetit.
No worries. Thank you.
Let's go wander around. I haven't been stuck on the phone with some Canadian HR people trying to work out how we can hire people in Canada. What else can I show you here? Well, this is a new thing. Most importantly, we've got a whole bunch of little Raspberry Pis and these beautiful. Oh, let me get my laptop in the right angle. There we go. There's a little Raspberry Pi in a beautiful transparent case, so transparent that it's almost not there, which are driving these new dashboards which we've got up around the place. And this is showing the number of folks who have been using Matrix anywhere for more than 30 days as reported back from their synapses. At the moment you can see it's about 38,000 people who have been kind of regular users for more than 30 days. And the graph is slowly curving up there, hopefully going to double at the current rate in a few months. But the whole point is to make that curve go faster. So we're going to be putting these on, in fact, going a bit non-linear on the script, not that we have a script. This is going to be hopefully going on status.matrix.org, which is coming up soon from the ops guys. And the ops guys, or guy, is currently deep in code, so I'm not going to irritate and embarrass him by chucking a camera in his face. But basically the Ansible stuff that folks are working on there is being refactored based on us using it in the wild over the last couple of weeks. But hopefully sounding positive.
Yeah, positive.
There we go, wonderful. Nice leading questions there. And also status.matrix.org, I think is actually is kind of soft launched, but there isn't any data going into it yet, but hopefully that will change real soon now.
Yep, it's going to look green all the time.
Perfect, yes. Yeah. In fact, that's the best kind of status. This is how we're going to fix all of our reliability problems, by just having a status page that says everything is fine, nothing is broken, with a big green thing forever. What's happening in Ben land?
Hey.
Oh well.
Hello all. How's it going?
Are you ill, Ben?
Yes, I'm dosed up on off-brand Sudafed.
Yeah, the cheaper
so,
the better.
Yeah, so not my most productive day. I'm just about to put out This Week in Matrix.
Oh yes.
The rest of the week.
How many do we have? In fact, I should have got a copy of this so I can mention it in the thing. In fact, should we do a kind of meta?
Yeah, do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Do you want to read? Can you read raw?
Well, I wasn't going to read out everything, but Neko did a new release, 0.4, which has got membership lists and all sorts. I haven't actually installed it yet. It's the first time I've missed a Neko release on the day that it came out.
I haven't gone to anything since V3, I think.
Oh, okay, well,
we will.
Sorry, Midgex will upgrade and have a play with it.
Yeah.
Fractal did. I think they do weekly releases, don't they?
Yeah, it's a point release. Yeah.
Although it does have some very important changes to the macOS build instructions, courtesy of yours truly. And Fox and Neo. So it's all become web and React, hasn't it? But
it's still early days, so they're able to put out a whole bunch of features every time.
Cool, but it looked really snappy and cool. If you want to see snappy, though, you should look at the very original version of Riot Web, back when it was Vector, or not even named Vector, which was the fastest Matrix client I've ever seen. And it's amazing how much something can bog down over time. But we will get back there. It used to be like 25 milliseconds to change between rooms, as opposed to 600 milliseconds that we have today. It's not that bad. Yeah, it's about 500 mils. Luke put out a big update to Journal. In fact, I should have grabbed Luke to talk about that. I think he's switched it over to using Redux, which is really interesting. It's sort of following on from the big debate about where you store state in a web app earlier. And Journal is a blog based on Matrix that Luke does in his spare time. And Ben is, sorry, we should probably be screen sharing it or something. Yeah. Trying to do a live demo. What can possibly ever? Oh, no, here it comes. It is. So it's loading it all up via the JS SDK, wrapping that up into, there we go, into Redux, and then you can see it looks like a Medium style blog with nice ligatures on the font. It looks like a Garamond font. Either way, it's all backed by matrix rooms, and it keeps track of the number of views and gives you threaded comments and stuff, and it's really cool.
Yeah, no, it works really well.
And then there's stuff happening on Diaspora Auth for Synapse. And we've also, Halfshot was hacking around the Matrix Discord bridge. What was happening with Gomux?
They've been closing issues and squashing things. My favourite now is that you can scroll the room list, which makes it a lot more usable, and it's nice to have a native Matrix terminal plan.
So what's it written in? Go, presumably.
Go, yeah.
I probably should have seen that one coming.
It's going something. I should know it already.
Okay.
Let's just go.
Oh, it looks good though. It looks really nice.
TV?
TV is presumably a terminal view widget thing.
Another Go.
Yeah, so like cursors or something, but written in Go. Cool. Well, I have to have a play with that.
There's one more of this you mentioned?
Oh yeah. That gets a section of its own in the Synapse. So you'll be stealing Eric's thunder there, perhaps. Cool. Anyway, were there any more? There was Katsuni doing generate things from API descriptions, which is C++, some Swagger, Open API stub generator, and Ben's lost the critical tab.
No, I've lost the whole thing.
Never mind. Nobody cares about this week in Matrix anyway.
You're kidding me.
I think that was
it. Must be this. There you go.
Yeah, there we go. And yeah, Halfshot was hacking on the Discord bridge coming up to Vanassi for 0.2, which looks pretty cool. We did the fun thing though. The exciting thing is the spec proposal stuff.
Yeah. So I have nothing to show for that yet, but
you could have showed at a sneak peek. Can we see the sneak peek?
It's just a table right now.
It is, but it's a very important table.
You can see it right now.
There we go. It's a table, and it's got links to Google Docs, and it's got lists of all of the specs, and they've even got numbers. Have we decided what we're going to call these things? MSCs?
Oh yeah. I don't know if we've got a final agreement, but we'll use the GitHub ID.
Well, the ID will just literally be the GitHub issue, and there'll also be the GitHub PRs on it too.
Yes.
And
it just makes the proposals a lot more discoverable and how do you want to say, more uniform.
Well, and actually track the workflow and not lose the direction of things, because I mean they're all over the place historically, whereas this is literally going to be bringing them all into one place, and it looks fab.
Yeah, it will do. It should be really good. We have a plan. I can't find anything. Can I? There's a plan for a more formal way of tracking proposals and seeing the progress.
It's basically all going to be tags on the metadata of the GitHub issues. Hopefully not making it too GitHub specific, so that if we end up on GitLab or something in future, then it will all still work.
Yeah.
But the idea is that you'd literally use the labels to say where it's got to. You also use the PR review state to say where it's got to, and then the comment has a bunch of key value things like the shepherd name, the author, the link to the Google Docs, the links to related PRs, and then it all gets put together into the one dashboard of doom as we track all of these MSCs. And we clearly need to give it something like an RFC style name. We don't want to call it RFCs because it would clash with ITF. We don't want to call it ZAP because it's not a protocol extension like a ZAP. Instead, it's literally a delta. It's a patch. It's a PR to the one and true spec. So anyway, that's what we'll be up to here. I cannot wait.
Yes, it's going to be another week or so, and there'll be something good to show.
Awesome. Okay, sorry for abusing you whilst you were pseudo-fedded then.
Thanks.
Eric.
Hello.
How is it being Eric?
Yeah, good, not bad.
I think our camera angles are probably really terrible for this. Especially if I close the thing. There we go. Perhaps I should. There we go.
It's better than my laptop where the camera's at the bottom.
Yeah, why would you do that?
I don't know.
It's absolutely
It
horrific.
does make the top really nice and thin though, but...
Yes, at the expense of nostril hair being the kind of main subject matter of every video call you'll ever do. What are we talking about? So, fun week going and fixing the depth behavior in Synapse so that people can't abuse it. Sorry if anybody got caught in the shenanigans on Sunday on Matrix HQ and Matrix Dev. So for people who don't know, tell us what a depth parameter is, Eric.
So a depth parameter is basically a thing on the event that says, how far it is from the start. So every time you send an event, basically that just gets incremented by 1. And it gets used for ordering and stuff and clients and things. It's not exactly the best to do it like that, because you have to trust other servers a bit to make that all work. So that does mean if someone lies about depth, it can get a bit awkward.
This is the thing, because basically you should be able to work out the depth yourself.
Yep.
Based on the ordering of the messages in the room. So it was only ever a convenience to try to tie break if you get two different chunks of the room, which you don't know which came first, and the order will give you an idea.
Yep.
And it kind of like timestamps almost, except sort of logical. And yeah, it turns out they cause a lot more problems than they solve, really.
Yep. So yeah, basically at the moment we're actually doing the work to make it so we don't have to use depth for that.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's going. Most of it is now. I've got it so that I'm assigning all the chunks as events coming in.
So the idea here is that you take your DAG that represents the structure of the messages in the room, and you split it up into, every time you get a chunk of disconnected events, they form a chunk, and then you basically keep track of what order the chunks are in, as well as what order the events are within the chunk.
And for a given chunk, because they come in as chunks, you can actually work out the sort of relative depth of all the events within a chunk, but you can do that manually as the server, so you don't have to trust anyone else.
And doesn't this help us, at the risk of sounding like a really bad TV interview, doesn't this help us with extremities too?
Yes, hopefully, possibly. We need to be slightly more careful with that, but the idea with extremities is that you have sort of your live chunk of stuff when new events are getting appended to, and the extremities, you have a set of extremities for that one, and you can just ignore all the extremities for older chunks. That means we have to figure out how to decide which chunks are live and dead.
The scope for injecting maliciously dead chunks or live chunks in order to twist things might be a bit obnoxious. So we're not going to jump ahead to do that immediately, but at least it gives us more infrastructure than we've had historically, where basically if you've got lots of extremities, you're just considering the entire history of the room ever, which could be a lot of extremities.
Yep.
So when do you reckon the chunk stuff is going to be done?
Soon, hopefully, maybe. It's about just trying to make pagination work again, basically. So hopefully that, and discovering that CentOS uses really old SQLite versions, and it makes me sad.
Do we really need to worry about ancient SQLites?
It depends whether we care about CentOS. Last time we tried to do something like this, some CentOS people came and were sad at us. So.
Can we bundle our own? Doesn't Python bundle its own SQLite?
It builds off of the SQLite binary.
Does it? I'm sure at one point they were shipping their own SQLite, so they can. Surely we can too. There must be a pure Python SQLite implementation out there. Cool. Well, honestly, on some of this stuff, I wouldn't worry that much about breaking the ancient SQLites.
I think
it's just tying our shoelaces together. There's something else. Oh yeah, obviously this mess of sorting out the depth parameter and making sure that people can't abuse it has completely crippled all the work we were meant to be doing this week on performance, which is a shame because it was tantalizingly close, I think it's fair to say. So sorry, Eric, that you've been context switched like this, but hopefully the massive algorithmic improvements will follow next.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Assuming that your brain doesn't dribble out of your ear in the intro.
Quite a lot of danger with that.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye. Now, whilst we're going and completely crowdsourcing Matrix Live by bugging everybody on a Friday afternoon, why don't you have beer? Why don't we have beer?
That's a good point, beer.
Can we fix the beer situation?
Can I get a
please?
beer while we're talking?
I tried this last week and I couldn't pronounce pseudonymous afterwards, and I literally had a mouthful of the beer. It was really depressing.
Great.
Pseudonymize. Oh, is it just pseudonymize? If you're going to pseudonymize, is it pseudonymize? Pseudonymize. It's pseudonymize. If you're going to pseudonymize Nemex ID. This is trying to also be a segue into talking about GDPR. But you
I need
don't
a beer.
Yeah, you do need a beer. It's terribly backlit. We'll have to fix this. Oh, there we go. If I stand
That's
here.
way better.
Yeah,
That's way better. Okay, so what I've been doing this week, the most interest is We want to do a better job at explaining what we're up to. We do videos like this, we talk about what we've just done and what's immediately on the horizon, but what we want to start doing is looking a bit further out and talking about a roadmap. So this is not only looking at the immediate now and next, but what are we hoping to have achieved in 6 months' time? What are we hoping to achieve in 18 months' time? And why do we think all these things sort of hang together, and what's important about that? So we talk about that a lot in the office here, but we don't do a great job at sharing that with the community, and we want to start doing more of it. So what I'm doing is trying to figure out a decent way to present that and publish it, and we'll put it on matrix.org so you can all see what we're working on, what we're not working on, and hopefully why we're making the decisions that we're making.
And it's going to kind of tie in with the spec work that Ben is up to with the list
Absolutely.
of proposal stuff,
Yep.
because it really shouldn't just be what us lot here happen to be randomly working on. I mean, it really should track the whole.
Oh, yeah, so-
the whole ecosystem.
Yeah, so the other thing that's really important about it is this isn't set in stone. This is just based on oh, fantastic! Look at this. Based on what we know now.
Sorry.
Based on what we know now, this is what we think we want to be working on. But this is going to be iterative. We're going to want to update it regularly. It's more a guide of where we're kind of thinking, and it's absolutely not. This is the one true truth, and the only thing we're going to do.
Cool. Yeah. I think it'll be awesome. People have been asking, where's the Riot roadmap for approximately 2.5 years? And given that Riot's only 2 years old, that's pretty impressive. So, thank you, Eric. I don't like this one. So yeah, that'd be great. Should we talk about GDPR stuff whilst we're here too?
Sure.
Briefly. So a lot of people have been saying, why aren't you doing anything on GDPR? Which turns out not to be true, because actually a whole bunch of folks are doing an awful lot of stuff on GDPR, whether it's Neil or Tom, who's basically leading it, or me, or anybody else who's basically been rushing around increasingly panic-stricken over the next, both the last month or so and then the next couple of weeks to try to hit the May the 25th deadline. The big question that we've been having is how aggressively to attack it at Matrix, because we can do a bunch of fairly low-hanging, simple things which are a little bit, I don't know, they're probably sufficient, but it's not entirely going as far as we could go in terms of benefiting from the privacy benefits that GDPR provides. The classic one that we're hung up on at the moment is whether we should hide MX IDs in rooms when people invoke even the right to erasure clause of GDPR, which is the thing that allows you to wipe yourself out from ever having participated in it. I spoke about it a bunch last week, I think. And we've basically been planning for a rainy day and doing all the work needed to prepare and understand what it would take to anonymise MX IDs. And Rich VDH, who's on holiday today, has been doing all the work there. It's still not entirely sure whether we're going to go ahead with it, because it's a lot of work and it's going to have impact on everything in Matrix, and we obviously want to give folks a chance to feed into it, and I strongly suspect we will share the proposal today, possibly Monday, of what we're talking about in detail there. But it basically involves replacing MX IDs with public keys, replacing event IDs with public keys, replacing room IDs with public keys, and basically removing anywhere where we have an identifying human identifier, like a domain name or a local part user ID. So it's a pretty big change, but it's actually not that impossible for the first cut, plus it will help us with data portability down the road. So it's a bit of a weird position to be in, that either we will do that, or we will try to have a click-through thing whenever you join a server, and that's another thing that we're going to have to be adding in the very near future, the ability to opt in.
Yeah, and on that, we've been trying to figure out the best way to do it. We want to do something that's going to be helpful to all manner of clients connecting into a Synapse. So we're trying to find a way that we can do that in the smoothest way that requires least disruption to our intrepid client developers.
Indeed. yeah, the options, I guess, are possibly a bot to say, hello, before you can use this server, please type yes to agree to the terms and conditions, or it could be an API, like a new API, like / terms and conditions that you have to have viewed and then committed before you can use the thing, but that would be such a pain for all the random clients out there, not to mention bridges and bots, bridges and things, as amusing as it would be for every Freenode user to get a opt-in to use I can't see how that could go wrong. And then the final one is to use login flows on login and registration, a bit like you do captures today, in order to force the user to jump through the hoop to confirm that they are who they say they are. Basically, there's loads of work been going on this, and we haven't spoken about it as much as we should. I suspect I'll write a big blog post trying to summarise the work that we're doing for the home server that we run as matrix.org, as well as the various services we have, and people can basically see what our checklist is, and then also link through to what may happen in the big, epic change all the IDs work that Rich has been looking at. Very exciting.
Damn right.
GDPR is a wonderful way to get very excited. Although it's kind of fun that it does force us to make a lot of things a lot better.
Right.
Fixing our ID problem, fixing data portability, fixing account migration, and also fixing the logout button, because if we do it using registration flows and login flows, it's going to force us to finally fix the misbehavior that when you log out, it deletes all of your end-to-end state. Instead, we'll have to differentiate between logging out that clears your entire account versus logging out because you just need to re-authenticate. So it's actually quite a good piece of legislation.
Let's have GDPR every month.
Yeah, I think we should. We should just keep ratcheting it up, so to speak, every month and be happy ever after. Sorry for bugging you now. Luke, I'm not going to talk to you again, apart from about Journal, because it does look really cool.
Oh, okay.
It's using the Redux wrapper that you've been working on.
So the version that's running live on my site is not yet using it, but I've been working on it the past 2 weeks, and it's looking relatively stable. Obviously, when you change the entire store layer, you get some bugs. So, but it's looking promising. It's looking like, in theory, it would work, and in practice, it does work. So
very exciting. So again, if you're a JavaScripty type who really likes storing state in different places, you should watch what happens with the Redux wrapper. Dave. Hello. Who is this? I never worked out who it is.
I'm not sure we really ever gave him a name.
Really?
Yeah.
How can we not have a name?
I don't know.
Occasionally people come into the office and assume that we make stuffed toys rather than software because there are so many plushes there sitting around. Where did he even come from? Is he even a he?
I don't know, have you checked?
It's very hard to tell. He looks a bit like a lemur. I'm not sure that normal rules apply.
I think one of our ex-employees posted him to us because he thought we might appreciate him.
Oh, if it's not full of anthrax. Anyway, we've been messing around with user directories for some very dubious values of we, which is mainly you.
Yeah.
This is some experimental stuff which has been driven in part by trying to advise the French government folks on how they can manage directory servers sensibly. And it's experimental APIs that really shouldn't be on master in retrospect, given that
any of them on master.
yeah, they are. Oh, they're on develop. Yeah, the Synapse stuff has ended up on develop, which is what Max was getting terribly upset about.
I thought everything went to the DINSIC branch.
I think it probably should be there. Either way, some experimental stuff which goes and syncs user profiles in, and it went live on one of the deployments last night, and seems to be working really well. Don't know what we'll do with this. We do need to sync with whatever Max is doing on MXISD, because apparently this is a feature MXISD has had for years and years.
Oh, yeah.
And we can work out how to wrap it into the matrix spec properly. What else are we doing? Got the Jitsi stuff.
Doing moving the Rights conference calls over to use Jitsi widgets, so hopefully the video calling will work a bit better than our custom free switch thing, which has been non-ideal. Some have its own limitations, but yeah, Jitsi seems to empirically work much better.
Cool. And then after that, end-to-end, possibly, perhaps,
Yes,
hopefully. Unless we have any other distractions for supporting folks who want to do exciting things with Matrix. There may be one, but hopefully we can actually make headway on end-to-end, otherwise it's never going to happen. Oh, forgot to talk to Eric as our back-end representative about the fact that Amber was tweeting, so Amber Brown in Australia was tweeting to confirm that she's coming on board to the good ship Matrix. So she's currently the release manager for Twisted and responsible for migrating Twisted from Python 2 to Python 3, which is kind of topical for us, given that Notifile is still working away, going and shifting from Python 2 over to Python 3 for Synapse. And she should be joining, I think, in a couple of weeks, and to help out on the Synapse side of things. Do we know when, Neil?
Yeah, it's the 20-something.
The 20-something?
The 20-something of this.
Okay,
month.
perfect. Amber is the first of a whole bunch of folks who are coming on board in May, which I think is going to be super exciting in terms of it being not just Eric and VDH on the back-end side trying to keep everything afloat. At least doing it as a full-time day job, that is. Sorry, Dave, I hijacked your spot with general PSAs. Anything else we should be talking about?
No, I don't think so.
Sure, there was something else really exciting, but I'm completely blanking on it now. Oh well, that's it. I've completely lost Amandine because she was finished with the Canadians and then ran. But thank you for watching, everybody. I'm sure there's lots of other important stuff which I'm totally missing. Says looking at the This Week in Matrix notes, and I think we've basically got everything. Oh, on Riot Mobile, of course, because we can't go and badger the guys in France directly. Been working on replies, and replies in general is looking exciting with Luke also working on it with Michael. Sticker sending, Android has got Kotlin enabled. On Synapse we've got some PRs from Halfshot and on Riot on React SDK, I think, for determining file upload sizes.
Yeah, that's good. I had a look at the React SDK one this afternoon, and yeah, it looks fine. Just needs to get the other bits in place.
And so this is literally negotiating what the max file size is, so you don't try to send somebody a 400 megabyte file and it craps out after 20 megs.
Yeah.
It's super useful. Thank you so much, Halfshot, for doing it. I'm sorry that we're being slow on the PRs because of the bandwidth problems on the Synapse side. And I think that was about it. Okay. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.